Hello and welcome to this special broadcast. The Supreme Court has passed its order in the case that has been going on for the past 14 years. The apex court has ruled in favor of the government in a matter that decides how much the Department of Telecommunication should calculate adjusted gross revenue. The court holds that the telecom operators have to pay both the penalty and interest on the penalty that comes close to 92,000 crores. Joining me now is Arpan Chaturvedi, who was in the Supreme Court when the judgment was read out. And here in our studio is with me is Somit Sarkar, who tracks the telecom sector very, very closely. Arpan, I'll come to you first. First, give us the news, what was said in the courtroom, and what's the implication?
That's right. So there's a small correction. The final amount which the telcos will have to pay, we do not know as of yet. This case in the Supreme Court had come from a ruling in the TDSAT which has ruled in the favor of telcos. The crux of the case was the definition of adjusted gross revenue as far as the telecom companies are concerned. The argument by the telcos was that only the core telecom services will form a part of calculating the AGR. However, the government's argument was that there were other services offered by the telcos, like, say, for example, handset services and rental income, etc. That also would be a part of the AGR. What the court, the bench headed by Justice Arun Mishra has said is that most of the grounds that the government wanted to include in the definition of AGR, they have upheld those arguments. What are exactly those grounds and what are some of the grounds that have been left out, that we will get to know once the detailed judgment is uploaded. Yes, it's correct. The DOT's argument based on their definition of AGR comes to close to around 92,000 crores. Once we get to know that what exactly is the definition that the court has upheld, we will get to know the exact amount that the telcos will have to pay. This was also argued today. Also, once the judgment was delivered, there was also a discussion on the time frame which should be given to the telcos to make these payments to the government. Senior Advocate Gopal Jain, who was appearing for one of the telcos during the course of the hearing, asked the court to not give a specific timeline until they finally get to know the amount that the telcos have to make in payments to the government.
Arpan, just a follow-up, by when will this total amount be known? Is there any clarity, or will that take some time?
So when the judgment is pronounced, it's basically the judges usually give a summary of the judgment, what are the key points, and once the detailed judgment is uploaded on the Supreme Court website, which normally happens the same day, so by evening or late evening today, we should get to know, we should have access to the entire full judgment, which is where I think we can calculate and find out what exactly is the definition of AGR that the court has upheld, and on basis of that we can calculate the payment that the telcos will have to make.
Okay, thanks for that, Arpan. Also, telecom analyst Mahesh Uppal joins us on the phone line. Thanks, Mahesh, for speaking to us. So, what do you make of the verdict? How will things move now?
Well, the verdict has confirmed the telcos' worst fears, and I think they'll be extremely disappointed. They would have hoped against hope that something else, that court decided something else. Clearly, that has not happened. Now, this means that the fate of especially Vodafone Idea would be seriously under question because it's been struggling financially for quite some time. And it also means that the government's 5G plans will certainly need a review, because I do not see how the telcos would have the appetite for 5G spectrum or have the appetite to pay the kind of money that the government expects from 5G auctions. So this actually, ironically, does have implications for the government as well. Obviously, there is some relief for the government that a huge amount of money would become due to it, and we don't know what the time frame is and in which this money would have to be paid. But clearly, this is something that we will know by the end of the day or something.
We also have Rajiv Sharma, the head of research of SBI Cap Securities, joining us on the show. So, Rajiv, what is your assessment of this order, and do you think the telecom companies are currently in a situation to pay this huge amount that that Supreme Court has ordered them to pay?
Well, the amount has not been suggested so far, but yes, they are adversely impacted. If you look at Vodafone Idea, they estimated to make an annualized EBITDA of USD 600 million to 700 million in the best case. And, they already have a debt exceeding of, 14 billion USD. So anything which is incremental debt here will only be negative. And similarly for Bharti, which has got a net debt in excess of 14 billion USD. So a lot depends, as to if this judgment is followed by government trying to provide any respite to the telcos. And there have been a couple of things which have been, there in the news reports, which is deferment of spectrum payments by a couple of years. And second has been some kind of floor pricing for voice of 15 paisa or something on those lines. Now, if any of this was to play out, then yes, there could be some kind of offset. So, we'll have to wait and watch as to how this plays out. Will this Supreme Court ruling being followed by some relief by the government, which kinds of offsets or not? But the larger question is that, how does the regulator is looking at the sector? Does it look for a 3-player market or a 2-player market?
So do you expect it to be a 2-player market now, given the fact that Vodafone Idea's debt situation is bad, and if they have to repay the amount that we have currently, close to around 29,000 crore rupees, that is according to the last affidavit that we have, then do you think there will be further consolidation in the telecom market?
So, I will not be able to answer your question directly, but the way I would like to highlight is that it may not be straightforward 3-2, and even it is also about government's ability to recover spectrum dues from incumbent telcos. For example, in case of Vodafone Idea, government needs to recover some 85,000 crore, for the spectrum which has been auctioned and they are currently using for 4G and 3G. So it is not that straightforward, but yes, there could be some impact, as we highlighted that there is a possibility that Vodafone Idea may look at closing down some unprofitable markets, being regional, which the company has denied. But there will be attempts to cut cost and in an attempt to serve these penalties and payouts which there are. The other thing is, will there be any tariff hikes? So Jio will not need it, but a Bharti or a Vodafone may need it. Now, if regulator was to come up with some kind of floor, then you may have some respite. So we'll have to not see this development in isolation. We'll have to see this development in context with the respite the government comes out with. If nothing, then we are definitely headed to that 3 becoming 2. Timing is not known and difficult to say.
Hi Mahesh, Soumit here. What do you think will be the next step that the telecom companies might take after this judgment has come in, and what according to you, which player will be most impacted? Do you think Vodafone Idea will be able to pay such a high amount that they have been asked to pay currently?
Is that for me?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I think as far as the telcos are concerned, given that the Supreme Court is the last court of appeal, they will have to now approach the government to see if the terms of this payment can be made more favorable. That has, as far as Vodafone Idea is concerned, I would agree with the previous speaker. There are some options for them, but very few. They already are struggling under very high debt, and they have been particularly badly impacted by Jio's entry, and as many people have said, that their EBITDAs don't even cover interest payments. So clearly, this is a big blow from them for them, and much will depend on what the parent companies decide in this case, the Birlas as well as Vodafone International, how they decide to approach this, whether they are willing to put in more money in the company, or whether they would choose to do something more drastic.
Okay, Sanjay Kapoor, former CEO of India and South Asia at Bharti Airtel, also joins us on the phone line from Delhi. Thanks, Sanjay, for speaking to us. Your first reaction on this developing story, what do you make of it?
Well, I don't think there is much to make out of it. We know that the sector has been under pain and fledgling under losses and is finding sustainability to be tough. And this is a big blow for the sector. But I think what is to be recognized is that this may not be a blow only for the sector, which is direct telecom service providers, if it was to go down and under, but with all the ecosystem that plays around with the telco sector. Today, when you look at the revenues of any telecom company compared to the regime when we were only voice and a little bit of data, at that time, out of the total ecosystem revenues, telcos would keep about 60-65%. But today, with data playing around and all the OTT play around it, that has probably reduced to 40%. And therefore, a lot of invisibles are there that are not visible. And you are only relating probably today the debt given by the banks to telcos. But I think there's a whole lot of periphery that exists along with it, which takes away today 60% of the revenue. All those guys are going to come under pressure as well.
Hi Sanjay, Soumit here. What according to you is the next step that the telecom operators can take post this judgment has been passed? And as this judgment, I guess we have lost the line with Sanjay. So Rajiv, I was asking you, given the fact that the net debt to EBITDA of Vodafone Idea is at around 8 times if you annualize the Q1 FY20 EBITDA, and given this amount coming in and with this amount, how do you see the debt number to pan out for both the telecom operators?
So, Sumit, I don't know which amount you're talking about. I don't have the amount which has been, so because the judgment says that they will take few months before the final amount is computed. But yes, the EBITDA number which you should look at is one which is not adjusted for AS 116. If you look at that number, we are talking about a leverage which is 18-19 times, not 8 times. When you look at AS 116, you are basically not recognizing, the tower rental expenses made by the telcos. Having said that, as I said, this will adversely impact the balance sheets of incumbent telcos and also impact the ability of the regulator looking at monetizing 4G, 5G spectrum. So this is a big negative for the sector overall. A lot depends on the potential, remedies or offsets by the regulator, and particularly a floor for voice. Because I've been of this view for long that tariffs won't increase by tweaking data tariffs. It is voice which needs to be charged, and a floor could really help the sector. If you recall, yesterday government has made some announcements regarding BSNL and MTNL. They are predominantly voice players. So a lot can be done. But yes, it will be negative for consumers because they may have to, particularly marginal consumers, because they will have to pay more for usage of telecom services.
Okay, Rajiv, we leave it at that. Thanks so much for speaking to us on BloombergQuint. Mahesh, you too. Thanks for taking the time out and speaking to us on BloombergQuint. Final word, Soumit, what's your sense of, once we spoke to, is just if you can just round up what this means for our viewers, what this entire news means for the two listed entities, and also if you can, does this impact Jio in any way? What does this mean for Bharti, and what does this mean for Vodafone?
Well, I'll answer the last question first, that it does not impact Jio, because according to the last affidavit paper that we had, Reliance Jio only had to pay close to 13 crore rupees, and that is because it started its commercial operations only 3 years back. But it's a big amount for Bharti Airtel and Vodafone Idea. If we go by the last affidavit amount that we had for Bharti Airtel, the amount was close to 22,000 crore rupees, and for Vodafone Idea it was close to 29,000 crore rupees. Obviously this amount will change depending on what are the components that they're including in the AGR calculation, and the interest amount will also increase. So this amount will definitely change, but according to the last affidavit, these were the amounts. So I'll just tell you what what the actual issue was in this case. So telecom operators are liable to pay 4% and 8% of the adjusted gross revenue as spectrum usage charges and license fees respectively to the Department of Telecommunication. Now, the operators were arguing that the AGR should comprise of revenue only from the telecom services, but Department of Telecommunication insisted that AGR should include all kinds of revenues earned by the telecom operator, and this was the main dispute that was there between the telecom operators and Department of Telecommunication, and that's the reason why all this issue has come up. Now, given the fact that the balance sheet is already stretched for both the telecom operators, obviously paying such a huge amount will further worsen their balance sheet.
So Idea anyway was in trouble. Bharti Airtel also, the balance sheet is stretched, but it was in a much better position compared to this thing. Do you think that this will put additional pressure on them? Do you feel like one of the the guests said that there could be a two-player market now going ahead in telecom? Is that something that could happen?
Well, comparatively, if you see, Bharti Airtel is actually well positioned compared to Vodafone Idea, given the fact that they also have various divestment options, like they have their a stake in Bharti Infratel. They also have the African unit, where they can further sell their stake, and also they have this fiber assets. But Vodafone Idea, typically, if you see, they would be in much under pressure because their total debt is close to 1,20,000 crore rupees. Their total debt to EBITDA, if I see the quarterly EBITDA, including the Ind AS 116 amount, it comes to around 8.2 times, and that of Bharti Airtel is just 3 times. So Vodafone Idea, when compared to Bharti Airtel, is in a much weaker position. And yes, if this amount is close to 29,000 crore rupees for Vodafone Idea, then obviously it will be very difficult for them to service this debt amount, because if you see the quarterly cash flow from operation, that is also negative at close to 2,300 crore rupees. So yes, it could become a two-player market from currently three-player market, because it looks difficult for Vodafone Idea at this
My final question, you said there's no impact on Reliance Jio, but sentimentally, is there a positive that Reliance Jio has, given the fact that there could be these guys will go under more trouble? So not on the penalty side, but on the positioning of Jio in the telecom space, will that mean a further advantage for them?
Well, yes, sentimentally it is positive for Reliance Jio, because they do not have a much bigger penalty amount, and given the fact that balance sheet is strong, they have a strong parentage backing them, that is Reliance Industries. It is positive for them, and they can further go aggressive in the market and take away more market share, both in terms of revenue and subscriber base, from the current players, that is Bharti Airtel and Vodafone Idea.
Okay.
So it is definitely positive.
Okay, Somit, thanks for that. So that's the end of the special coverage on the telecom play and the telecom news that just came out. For more views and updates, keep watching BloombergQuint. More news will follow. Thanks for watching.